anxious about the economy, the cost of living, income levels, jobs for young people, and even about issues on which we all thought we had achieved a national consensus. When some amongst us are raising questions about the certainties on which we are building the state, it is not surprising that worries about the stability of the government would become cause for heightened tension in the nation. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago to the day, we were in the midst of a lockdown in the main metropolitan centers of our country. We were truly in the midst of the unknown. It took a while before it even got a name, but a pandemic it was. And the only certainty about it was that nobody knew very much about it. The scientists, the health experts, and the World Health Organization were all united in their view that the virus would cause a lot of devastation. The world before COVID now seems such a long time ago, and the trauma of a world ruled by a pandemic has changed all our perspectives. Back in March 2020, when the first cases of COVID hit our country, we and the rest of the world were in uncharted territory. Fear and sheer terror gripped our land. Probably to future generations, it will look quite obvious what should have been done. But 2 years ago, a dark, malicious, and terrifying abyss. We could not have been prepared for the catastrophe that hit us. Even the richest economies with the most sophisticated structures were unprepared. Maybe some of us have forgotten what the experts were predicting at the time. Our health and medical infrastructure was woefully inadequate, and we would not be able to cope. There were going to be piles of dead bodies strewn across the streets of Africa. There was a general consensus that we should spend all our energies on resources, on protecting lives. I remember, for example, the discussions about PPEs 2 years ago. Nobody was asking or was interested in how much they cost. Just find them for our health workers, and that was the only consideration. I wonder how many people remember the cost of the first face shields and nose masks that came into our country. I took the decision we would prioritize the savings of lives, and then we would get together to rebuild our economy. Nobody imagined the devastation would be so widespread and last so long. We've had our fair share of COVID deniers and conspiracy theorists, but it is fair to say, Mr. Speaker, that our management of the COVID-19 outbreak has been exemplary and has been so acclaimed by the world. And with the great mercies of the Almighty, we have saved lives. Indeed, the total number of deaths we have sadly recorded, 1,445, represents a minuscule fraction of the total number of deaths on the African continent, 0.6%. I remember a year ago, we were in the midst of the second wave of COVID infections and deaths. There was widespread fear. Again, there was consensus. We should concentrate all attention and resources on protecting lives. By that time, a little more was known about the virus, and the anxiety had shifted to the provision of vaccines. We moved rapidly to secure the provisions of vaccines, first for the frontline officials and workers and those most at risk, and then to the general mass of the population, always rely on the current scientific thinking. We had to learn some very hard lessons, and our belief in the need for self-sufficiency was reinforced when vaccine nationalism was played out blatantly by the rich and powerful countries. Mr. Speaker, the Presidential Vaccine Manufacturing Committee, which I set up to respond to this obvious deficiency, has put in place a comprehensive strategy for domestic vaccine production and the establishment of a National Vaccine Institute to implement the strategy, which will enable us to begin the first phase of commercial production in January 2024. A bill will shortly be brought to you in this House for your support and approval for the establishment of the National Vaccine Institute. This pandemic exposed other shortcomings of our country, which have undoubtedly contributed to the anxieties that have befallen the nation. Agenda 111 was born out of this necessity to address some of these shortcomings. At the normal rate of growth, we're not likely to make up the deficit in our health facilities infrastructure for a very long time. Hence the need for a special dedicated program of infrastructural development. We are undertaking the construction of 101 entities, which comprise standard 100-bed district hospitals for 101 districts without hospitals, with accommodation for doctors and nurses. 6 new regional hospitals for each of the 6 new regions. The rehabilitation of the Efia Nkwanta Hospital in the Western region. 1 new regional hospital for the Western region. And 3 psychiatric hospitals for each of the 3 zones of the country, that is North, Middle, and Coastal. It is an ambitious project which must and will be done, and which will create some 33,900 jobs for construction workers, and on completion, some 34,300 jobs for health workers. Mr. Speaker, I have to report, like all major construction projects, it is evident that the initial schedule we gave for the completion of Agenda 111 was overly ambitious. Identifying suitable sites around the country, for example, has turned out to be even more problematic than had been anticipated. I am now able to say has now been completed, and work has started at 87 of the 111 sites. I've been assured that preliminary work on the remaining 24 sites is ongoing. We have every intention of seeing this project through to its successful end, which will enable me to commission all 111 hospitals before I leave office on 7th January 2025. Mr. Speaker, we have saved lives and fared much better than we had feared and the experts predicted.